Hello and welcome to Conversations about Language Teaching. I'm your co-host, Dr. Reed Riggs, pronouns are he, him.
And I am Dr. Diane Neubauer, she, her. Um, you
This
want
topic, yeah. Okay,
to,
so our topic today is going to be about, we have a title and we briefly talked about how we're going to define things and then decided to
yeah,
define it in the episode. So the title is Targeting
yeah.
Beginners, and we'll get into it after mentions. Do you have any mentions?
hmm Oh, mentions. Let's see. I did get the Fluent Pet buttons for my cat. They came in the mail, and I'm starting to train her. So far, we've made two steps of progress. She likes the buttons. She understands that one of them gets pushed and it means treat. At first, she thought all of them should mean that.
Oh,
And now, though, she knows that that one means treat and those ones mean something else I'm not totally
mm.
sure of.
Oh, cool, cool, cool,
So,
cool.
yeah,
Oh,
it's
that's a
pretty
cool
cool.
progress update. So to
Yeah.
record it, do you just you hold the button to record? How do you do it?
There's a little switch on the bottom to record. You push it, record your voice, let it go, and then you switch it back to the play mode. And then
Did
when you push it, it just plays at once every
did
time you push.
did you like your first go at recording, or did you have
No.
something in mind that you were aiming for? How it sounded?
Well, they suggested like a positive, normal sounding voice, like positive that, you don't want the animal to feel like there's a threat sound in your voice, but also that it sounds normal. And I wasn't sure I did at first, and then getting the timing.
Hmm.
But yeah. Yeah. So, and
Yeah.
then they encourage you to speak along with the button and go back, push the button, say it again with your voice. So
Oh,
it's not like you're trying to tie in that, like, remember this thing that I say to you? This is
yeah.
also what this button does. And
Ah,
so attaching that
yeah.
this functions in the same way that coming out from my mouth functions in that. So I know for sure she understands a few words. Like she's clearly showing I expect this thing to happen when she hears that word. So
Yeah.
treat,
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
outside, um, maybe eat dinner because I
Hmm.
say fan for that.
Yeah.
So she's food motivated is part
I
of it.
wonder. Yeah. I wonder if she's sort of like a heritage learner, where she's had the home language, but now we're trying to transfer that into an instructional setting.
Well, what I found interesting was it sounds to me like a lot of it is she's just turning off like, oh, la la la, kind of the Peanuts teacher sound or
Mm,
the wah
mm,
wah wah wah
mm,
wah wah. Like
mhm.
all the human talk is like, well, if it sounds positive, that's a good thing. And then occasionally she would have picked out a word, but I've been
Yeah.
emphasizing words. So
Mm.
I don't know which one, did I help her attach meaning to a couple of sounds? But
Yeah.
so all this is so fun for me.
It'll
Like
show
it's
you. Yeah.
fun to work with the cat, but it's fun to think about the way that we inculcate the sense of this sound means this thing.
Sure.
And I'm not going to be teaching her reading, so
No. Yeah.
um,
It's not a goal,
you know,
right?
right, right. So really thinking about like
Yeah.
not that this is not expecting pets to like become fluent in English. This is
No.
about being able to attach meaning to certain sounds and using these buttons to assist them in producing them when they want. So it's a
Yeah.
process. They're not saying it's language. They called it on the website language like communication. And I
Oh, I
thought,
love that.
ooh, I think they're
Yeah.
serious. Like they did consult researchers because
It
this
seems
sounds
like
like
it.
Bill Van Patten would approve
Right,
of
right.
the, you know,
That's hilarious. Yeah, and the
yeah,
goal isn't so much of like a scientist interest in like how far can I get them in syntax, ordering
right.
words. It's can they
Although there
express
are
what they
some
need?
people, there are some people doing that more advanced
Yes.
work with a big poodle, the What About Bunny
Sure.
account. They're
Sure.
they're doing some things because the researchers are saying, hey, try asking Bunny more about time
Okay.
differences and
Oh yeah.
like when did she go to the
Mm.
park and that
Yeah.
kind of thing,
Yeah.
and
No,
see what
and
she can do with that. But
my
but
science
yeah,
mind says that I love that and I want to know more about that and I will read papers on that. My
yeah.
teacher mind says that in the like I guess more of a marketing perspective, like why are these people selling the buttons?
Mhm.
Why are people why would they want, who would be their biggest customer base? Probably the goal there is, can the animal express more to me when they need specific things from me?
Yes.
It's probably more of an expressive
That's
goal.
exactly it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not to erase the body language and the other kinds of ways that an animal tries to communicate with a human.
Yeah. It's about
It's to
more.
support it, to get
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
specificity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's probably fun and neat to
Oh
have your
yeah.
animal use your language.
Yeah.
Entertainment is the
Yeah.
second goal.
She was obviously very smart in picking up like ways in which we were expressing meaning to each other more in body language and action.
Yeah, yeah.
And she obviously loved being understood.
Hmm.
And so, yeah. Oh, another word I think she knows is kan, to look.
Okay.
I
I,
think she knows what that is.
one thing I'm thinking is that you might, all of your routines that you set up with Holly the cat have been probably initiated and mostly shaped by you, by the
Yeah.
humans, maybe
Well,
somewhat by
no.
her because she'll ask for
Yeah.
things. Okay.
It's collaborative,
It's
I would
collaborative.
say.
It always has been. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. I was going to wonder if,
Yeah.
if these buttons could, by allowing her to be more specific with requests, that it could shift your routines in a different way, that like she could initiate
It
some
could
more. Yeah.
it could absolutely do that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what it'll do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think all of this does tie into our topic. It's kind of
It
why I let it
does
run. And I have no
very
mentions.
much.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So targeting beginners, I think we need to define our terms. And by the way, defining terms is very much something we do on the show. It's something that researchers have to do. You'll
Yeah.
get called out by
When
your
they
reviewers if you
Yes,
don't define your
exactly.
terms. There's
Yes,
a yeah.
there's a meta-analysis of studies of student engagement in classrooms and in language learning in specific, and the authors pointed out that like we surveyed, I think it was 80 or 100 different studies, 20 of them clearly defined what they meant by engagement. So like the
Oh,
whole study was supposed
oh,
to be about engagement, and it just took for granted that
yeah.
we all have the same thought about what that means,
What?
and this is how we're going to look and observe
Yeah.
it or measure it or say we found it. And so yeah, that was
That's
part of in
that's
my
disappointing
dissertation. I
and
needed to get a
yeah.
good definition.
That's
So
disheartening. Where I thought you were going to go with that is that the 100 papers they looked at had many different definitions
oh, that
in
too.
them. Yeah,
Yeah.
good. Okay, that's the point I wanted to get at. There's a sort of I see this in my high schoolers, and so I've run into this a couple of times where I have my high schoolers. I'm starting a new thing with my ninth and 10th graders. They do a personal Mandarin project. Or in the IB system, every 10th grader does a personal project. They'll come up with art projects and just whatever they want to do, but it's about self-managing for a whole year and just on your own time building up this long project and journaling it. It's part of the IB curriculum. So I was kind of inspired. I thought I want my students to know more about Chinese culture and history and things like that. So the personal Mandarin project. And one of the things I did to make it more streamlined is use the IB key concepts. And so there's things like, do you want your whole unit to be about form, the way things are shaped so that they serve a purpose? Do you want your whole unit to be about aesthetics, how things look, how they're painted, colors, like what do you want to focus on? So I worked through that with my students. We have specific work days for this. I think I have 5 in the whole semester. And one thing that came up is I had a student who said, "Oh, I'm going to do culture," and I said, "Okay, there's a definition of culture given on the key concepts document from the IB," and he said, "No, I just know what culture is." And I said, "Hold on, but it's got details in it. Like if you're using the word culture from that document, which is what this is, like what I've assigned to you, then I'm
Yeah.
assuming that you're following that definition." And he goes, "No, everyone knows what culture is." And I said, "This is something that I feel like,
The confidence of a teenager.
yeah,
Mhm.
but I think that I almost want to label it as like a human immaturity feature,
Yeah.
not like your
Yeah.
whole personality is immature, but that it's one of thousands of things, like human behaviors, that a lot of people never outgrow. We
Yes,
continue
exactly.
thinking that words just have one meaning, and
Yeah.
researchers have to
The one that
confront
you
this.
didn't question for yourself is the one you
Sure.
think it is for universally, yeah, for
Yeah, yeah.
everyone. Yeah.
But you see it even in 80 out of 100 research papers that they're like,
Yeah.
okay, engagement, let's
I
go.
might have the proportion wrong,
Okay,
but
okay,
it was
okay.
like a lot of them,
All right.
a lot.
Let's
And they were remarking that this is a problem.
yeah,
This is why we wanted to do this whole kind of
right.
survey of all the research. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. It's like a Paul Hiver and three other
Okay.
authors,
Yeah.
Huri, and I think a
Mm,
third author. I'm gonna have to check. So
sure.
I'll put that in the show notes when
Show
I
notes,
find
yeah.
it. Hmm.
So this is why we do so much defining on our show,
Yeah.
partly to make our episode run clearly, but also because our whole field needs
Yeah, needs it.
definitions. And not to say that we
Yeah.
are setting the definition. We want
Right.
to set a model of giving definitions when you talk about things. And so if in
Right.
this episode we mean beginners, we give our definition, we don't mean for that to be everyone's definition. We just mean that the next time you talk about beginners, you define
Yeah,
what you mean by
make sure
beginners.
we know what you
Yeah.
meant by
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All right,
Yeah.
let's do it.
So
Let's define it.
yeah. Yeah. So with that series of prolegomena, is that the
Sure.
word? Like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
preview
Sure,
before
sure.
the
Sure,
actual
sure.
the actual thesis.
This is a
Yeah,
prologue.
the to me, I'm thinking beginners as people who are beginning a sequence of classes with a teacher. Maybe it's the
Okay.
very first time they've encountered this language. Maybe it's at least in my mind the first time they've encountered this teacher and is that you're new to this classroom,
Would
like
you count?
to my thinking, or this
Yeah,
setting for your language learning, like
sure.
online.
But if a student has had like a year or two of language, then they're in a new classroom with a new teacher, would you call that student a beginner in what we're going to talk about?
For the purposes that I had some thoughts about, yeah.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
I'm not necessarily saying that we're talking about novice language level
Okay.
proficiency,
Sure.
but also that could so they could overlap.
All right.
A beginner could be brand new to this language experience. In my
Yeah.
mind, I'm thinking of people starting a new language
Okay.
class
Okay.
or like beginning to work with someone,
Hmm.
because I think there are some things that we benefit from doing with any proficiency level of learner right there at the beginning in that first lesson or two. And
Okay.
some of it is, I think, it kind of building in not just verbally stating expectations or how the class works or what your principles are, not just saying those things, um, but demonstrating through the lesson itself that those things really hold here. So they're not just aspirational, like, well, we're going to use the target language to communicate with each other, but no, we really do. And when you see a student attempting to give you a response, even if it's a head nod, you reward it quickly because you're showing that, like, see, I really am paying attention to you and what you do here matters. We're about communicating together rather than because a lot of, I guess, a lot of the thinking I have in this is based on knowing students who had other language experiences before. And I feel like there's this kind of general thing out in, to use the word culture, in our cultures where we think we know what language learning is supposed to look like. And I mean language learning, not in the Krashen sense of subdivided from acquisition. I just mean like the whole gamut, the whole range of possible ways to attempt to gain language. We kind of have like beliefs about what that is when you walk into a classroom the first time. And so I want to help people rebuild a sense of like in this room, what we're going to do is this, and here's some reasons why, and let that kind of grow over time.
So you're talking about a
So
default and then trying to train people away from that default?
yeah, or like trying to touch on the kinds of defaults that might be out there.
Okay.
Like
Mm.
someone might be like maybe it's supposed to be a lot of repeat after the teacher. I find that very, very common. And sometimes as a teacher, where I'm trying to go so slowly, if this is a very novice level class, I'm literally speaking this, like that's the pace that
Okay.
I'm using, but in Mandarin,
Yeah.
like I so that they can hear the sound, so they can process, oh, that means that. Oh, that means that. That means that. Like as I'm saying it, I'm if you're giving a lot of extra time, but that extra time when it's people who are used to don't process meaning, repeat, repeat, repeat. Like that, if that's their default message from what they expect, then they might miss the actual thing that's happening in the classroom. And so sometimes I'll even say, like, if you want to kind of try it out quietly in your mouth, because that's fun, that's totally okay. But you don't need to repeat after me. What we're doing here is I want you to think about what is the meaning of what you're hearing and what's a good response to that. And this head nod, head shake is a good response. A thumbs up, thumbs down really works. Like all those things that help them. Sometimes at this point, I've had adult learners especially say, okay, well, how do we say yes and no? Like, there's
That's
not a yes and
tricky,
no
tricky
in
in Mandarin.
Mandarin,
Yeah. Not
you
not
know?
for this
And
conversation.
so,
Yeah.
right. And so, like, I often, like, this works great. So I demonstrate with my head nod and
Yeah.
then, like,
Hmm. Hmm.
like for now, and you'll see as we go, you'll start to figure out where that is, and you'll start to hear that I'm modeling it to you as you start to give me responses. we can talk about it at the end if you still have questions about
Yeah.
that.
Would you use the term false beginner? Have you heard that term?
I have heard that term, and I think that can be helpful
Okay.
in the teacher's mind.
Yeah.
I would not call the student that
Oh no.
because they may have spent 10 years,
Yeah.
working very hard, thank you very much.
Sure.
Yeah, but they may, and what I think of the false beginner as is like somebody who has a lot of really deeply memorized,
Yeah.
accuracy focused,
Sure.
you know, form focused, like they're really thinking about like, oh, get this sentence out exactly like this and saying it. And I'm thinking a lot about the spoken language
Okay.
at the moment, but
Yeah.
um I've definitely known students who are like they're policing their own production. They're heavily, in Krashen's terms,
Yeah.
over monitoring
Sure.
their production of spoken language.
Mm.
But it's, I think, because of that training of the repeat after the teacher, produce it accurately,
Yeah.
verbally, right away, as soon as possible, as much as
Yeah.
often as you can,
So
and
they're
like
kind of bringing
turning
a
that
belief
stress down
system.
takes
Yeah.
time.
They kind of bring a
Yeah,
belief system with them about what language study should look like, what language learning outcomes
yeah,
should look like. And a lot of
right,
it's very
right.
accuracy based and not very much based in like bigger discourse competencies.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm thinking partly of the adult learners that I mostly teach now when I'm teaching Chinese now. But I saw this with middle school kids and high school kids. The other thing, though, that I think a beginner learner in a school setting has sometimes the default walk in. They're not thinking of like, oh, I'm going to be this great language learner here. I'm going to do all the things by, repeating after the teacher, like a lot of the adults, like, just turning that down a little bit. The thing that can happen with students in school, and I know this will make sense in your setting too, is that they've got the school game
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
Like, I know how to make this teacher get off my back and do the minimum.
Yep.
Not that they're necessarily thinking of
Yeah.
that and they're not
Yeah.
necessarily that jaded, but they're
Hmm.
protecting themselves because school can be
Yeah.
an uncomfortable, hostile experience for
I
kids
thought of a
sometimes.
very
And
positive way to frame this. It just popped in my head yesterday and I ran it past Non. Being a good student and being a good learner in the way that I'm thinking of them are very different things. And Nan was a little confused at first. So I said, okay, well, this is meant to express an idea that I have. That being a good student means you're really good at balancing the many things that school is charging you with being responsible for, and you're really good at getting the grades and really sort of points-based outcomes that you're aiming for. Not every student is aiming for top grades. I have students that'll say, if I do this, can I get a passing grade? And I say, yeah. So the grades that you
mhm.
expect to get, you do all the balancing work of typically cramming the night before. A lot of my students know, and I'll have students that'll say, wait, that test is a week from now? Oh man, I already studied for it. Like they're mad. They're mad that they studied for it. I'll say that's great because your brain uses sleep time
Yes,
to
needs
reorganize
that.
information. It actually helps you learn. And they're like, yeah, but I had this other test I could have been studying for.
Yeah,
They
they've
know
got
that
so much they're juggling.
they're
And that's
juggling a lot. They're being a
that's
good
an academically
student.
motivated child too.
Yes.
So
And so they're a
they're
good
in
student.
it for that.
But if
Yeah.
you talk about, in the long run, your proficiency would grow better if you did these other things. They'll say, I don't have time for that. So I'd say
Yeah.
their goal isn't learning. Their goal is being a good student, which is typically how to get the grades, get the college application stuff ready. The school game, as you called it, I think is being a
Mhm.
good student, and teachers would really benefit from, I think, differentiating. This is a good student. I have some students that get top grades,
Mhm.
but when I talk to them about culture, using the language outside of school, or even
Yeah.
college, they'll say, I don't ever want to do this. Like, I hope in college I don't have to take a language, and I'm so ready to be done with this. I don't want to do
Wow.
the language anymore. So
Yeah.
they're
It's sad.
expressing a goal that is
Yeah.
grades and not learning language.
Right.
Yeah.
It's yeah, get me through this thing. I
Yeah.
was thinking also though of the not academically motivated students
Sure.
who are walking in there who are maybe, displaying I'm going to do whatever like the minimum thing to keep you off my back, but I'm not in this for either the grades or
Sure.
the language. Um, those folks occasionally came to me because they were traumatized. Like the high school students I taught sometimes told me, they were like, I hear that Chinese doesn't have conjugations and I'm burned out on my middle school Spanish.
I want
Like,
the
is it
Spanish
true that
kids
there's
at
no
my school
conjugations?
to hear that.
You
I've
know,
been saying this. I think Chinese is the easiest language that we offer in school,
Damn.
because you're just
You
learning
don't,
words. You're just learning words.
yeah. Yeah. And so I can affirm that and empathize with that. But like Spanish didn't have to be that for them.
It didn't
They
have
didn't
to
have to
be,
have it. Yeah.
but in
It
given the
didn't have to
reality
do
that
that.
we
They could have,
have,
yes,
yes,
exactly. So
yes,
so sometimes I have these students who are walking in, they're like, hey, look, I'm not the academically superstar person. I'm not really into the language, but I have to take this because I want to go to college.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so this seemed like the best route. Did I do that right? Kind of thing. And with those folks, I think some of the initial experiences of success both with language and with like a sense of social connection and approval and success and that kind of motivational side of things, that getting that in that very first class, that very first week, multiple
mhm,
times,
mhm,
like doing things that are going to like they earn a high five just for doing like things that like they nodded their head
yeah,
in an appropriate way at the to a question or something. And like the high five motivational little reward thing, I love doing that, or like a fist bump, or maybe it's just a
mhm,
wave, or I don't know, you make up your
mhm.
thing that seems appropriate for your students. Like if they don't
Maybe,
want to have
if,
any physical contact, that's,
yeah,
find a way. But like doing something that is rewarding, like you did the thing that makes our classroom function
yeah,
and really leaning on that. I have seen some of those less academically motivated kids really be into
mm,
Chinese class, and they
yeah,
kind of admitted it late in the year.
mhm,
Like, I really like this class. And, I didn't really care about Chinese when I
mhm,
started.
yeah,
And like,
yeah,
and so like if we can hook them, like doesn't always happen. It doesn't
no,
always happen, but I have seen it happen sometimes, and I rejoice when it does. And I think that part of what I'm trying to tap in there for them, it's like, okay, I found out, the academically gifted or the academically motivated student, like we know we can help them see, like, how can I get the grade that I want here? Make the grade that they want tied into the things that we know help them acquire a language. But the ones that don't care about either the language or the grade, I think like making that, like finding those other motivational things, like, hey, it feels good to succeed. It
yeah,
feels good to be like known as a person and approved of and
sure.
get like
And at the turn by turn
developing
level,
that.
you're fostering, I think what OJ Cert calls the willingness to participate. I don't know if
Yes.
that I think it originated from him. I'm not sure. It's
I
a
I think
2015
I've
book of
seen
his.
it, but willingness to communicate, I think, has been a
His,
term
yeah,
in research.
his was more of an interactional definition that like
Right.
it's in that turn by
Right.
turn that they're willing to be in the turn by. They're willing to be present, maybe contribute, maybe show they're listening. Attentive listening is another thing he's looked at.
Yeah.
How do you show
Yeah.
you're
OJ
listening?
Cert does a lot with conversation analysis, which we've spoken of before.
Yeah,
So we'll
in
definitely link to
classrooms,
his work.
specifically
We
in
like his work.
classrooms. Yeah, yeah, good
Mhm.
work. Okay, so let's get into the micro suggestions here. What do you think?
Well, I mentioned one,
Hmm.
and that was that literally I try when it was feasible, when the class size was 20 or less, which was the case for my K through 12 teaching experience almost all the time. I tried to get the students' names on the first day. So somehow I'm involving their name, whether they're written on a little card and I use them out loud when I see them written down, or I've actually used their names as the first topic of discussion in the classroom. So I called it circling with names at the time. And someone brought this up in Australia in a teacher group online. They were found my 10-year-old video about that. And so doing something that those students hear their name and you are starting to learn their names as the teacher, and then the other thing is like trying to get to each child or student learner with some kind of that positive individual recognition of, wow, what a great thing you contributed here. And if it's a high five or if it's a like, a little celebratory, like something that you do in your class as a routine, like, wow, and I don't mean like rewarding their accuracy, I mean rewarding their involvement in the message that we're talking about. So if they're showing a comprehension of something and then like, I don't know, is your name uh, John?
Hmm.
And they go, yeah, I mean, that might not be the high five moment, like,
Hmm.
oh, class, his name is Bob.
Mhm.
And he goes like this, and we're like, yeah, see, I was wrong, wasn't I? Is it John?
Yeah.
Yeah. And now we've got the little like
So you
so they
play,
get that
you're
there's a little
playing. Yeah.
play,
Yeah.
and they went with me with it. Like that's a reward moment. Like
Mm.
something that helps to establish like the tone here is going to be a little quirky.
Mm.
It's going to be safe to be wrong because I just modeled it,
Yeah.
and we're going to work with it when it happens because that's what we're about.
You're modeling being present with them and therefore inviting them to be present with you. It's like
Yeah.
I'm present with you. You're welcome to be present with me.
Hmm.
Yeah, taking it slow.
Yeah.
Slow is
Yep.
another one. So for our listeners, I was your assistant in Ajan, I think in 2019
That was
in
them.
the
Yeah.
Mandarin lab, Chinese lab, and we've been to conferences over years. But the comment that I frequently hear about your teaching. Oh, we also invited you to the Halt Summer Summit on Zoom, I think. Was that 2020
Yeah.
when
That's
COVID hit?
2020. Yeah, I
Yeah,
was in
when
COVID. Yeah.
COVID first hit. So comment, yeah, so you led a demo there as well. And so all these different times, what I hear from people frequently commenting is wow, she goes really slow and I love it. Like what, I can't believe you
Yeah.
can go
Slow is
that
not a complaint
slow
from a
and it's
true
so
beginner
engaging.
usually.
Yeah, they love it. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Spacing out words
Right. So, yeah, making sure that your pacing of anything that you're saying is going to be appropriate to the
to the
level
level.
that, yeah. Yeah.
And
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 so
and how do you
it builds
know
that sense of
is
success too.
it's through watching them, yeah. Like
Yeah.
because you're
Watching them.
interacting with them, you
Exactly.
can see the speed at which they can process and respond. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yep, yep. And do it using multiple types of information that they give you. The look on their face, where their eye gaze is going sometimes can help. Their actual verbal responses or motions that look like head nods or head shakes or whatever. Again, I'm thinking of a novice learner. If you're with a more advanced group that you're just starting out with, a lot of the times I find there you end up doing the things I mentioned with the adults I teach online where we're trying to move away from like the accuracy, like turn down the concentration on accuracy and their own hearing
Yeah.
themselves speak and
Yeah.
oh, am I saying that right? And more focus, like turn up the focus on what's the meaning of what we're talking about. What are you contributing in
Yeah.
communication? And getting that shift to happen. I find that happens with the
Interesting.
more advanced learners that were beginning class with me, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
they had some level of proficiency. They had a lot of language floating in their head besides, but helping them get that sense of like finding the pace of speech and the complexity of speech that they were ready for can be really interesting. That's actually a little tip on that kind of situation. What I found really helpful was using Ashley Hastings' version of movie talk with those folks. So like a year three
Oh yeah.
level
Hmm.
where they have a lot of vocabulary, but do they have proficiency where they can hear it in real time and respond in speech in real time and do
Sure.
that interpersonal communication? That movie talk at the beginning of working with them was really helpful
At the
because it didn't
beginning.
feel to them
Ah. Yeah.
like it didn't feel like you're reviewing, you're testing what we
Mm.
can understand, but I
Right.
was. But it was
Sure.
a really engaging way to do it. And it helps because it was okay for a lot of it to kind of just drift past them because we're watching the movie and I can point and we're following the plot anyway.
With
But like
a
we've got things to hang
yeah.
our language on that
Ashley
can
Hastings
help.
style, the sort of original version of it. So you're
Yeah.
playing a full clip for how long? Like a minute?
Like a scene. So it
Okay.
might be about a minute.
Yeah.
So you play the scene, sound on, just to watch, just to see what's happening. You really have to coach them. Like, it's okay if you don't understand.
Yeah.
You probably won't catch
Yeah.
any more than a word or two. If you catch a word, oh, wow, it's so great. That's not where we're concentrating on language comprehension. You're just getting the background, like what's going on in this scene. Then we go back to the beginning of that scene, sound off.
Okay.
And we play it again where there's some narration from the teacher, occasionally a pause for a
Ah.
question
Hmm.
or pause to freeze, like, oh, what do you see on screen here? You know, is this guy feeling curious, do you think? Or,
Right.
like that sort of thing. And yeah, Ashley Hastings' version of it was very narrative. The teacher was describing what was seen on
Mm.
screen,
Mm. Hmm.
pointing to things. I do like a little extra interaction with students, but
Mm.
But and then you go on to the next scene, play it with the sound on. Again, you're just getting the background.
Mm.
You jump back to the beginning of that scene, mute, and narrate again, maybe with a little question. Yeah. So
That's
that's the procedure through the whole film eventually. And
oh,
because I was aiming for like, let's see if I can say it in the simplest way possible and choose a movie wisely for that. One that's very visual storytelling along with the language. So you've got that visual scaffold to help their comprehension. That that was really good.
yeah. Okay. Okay, so that's for the kind of intermediate plus proficiency
Hmm.
students. Um,
I liked it. Yeah.
yeah. Now for
How
total
did you get
beginners,
started with your students though?
with me,
Yeah, because you had a lot of, well, students who had a lot of years of experience in classes before they got to you.
yes. So this is
I
a
mean,
comment.
lately.
This is a comment that comes from the middle school teacher. Is the students won't study, and so in ninth grade when they come to me, and she was often talking about with the teacher who was the high school teacher before me. She would say, yeah, they just don't study and they don't seem to learn anything. And when they get to ninth grade, we start them over in phase one. Phase one is the IB proficiency classification. And so we have phases 1 through 6.
Mhm.
We've learned recently that phase four really should be the end of like high school itself. They leave these extra 2 phases to be for like really highly proficient kids, like I
Mm.
guess to leave, the advanced and superior, I guess, in there. Um, but technically phase is what the class is, and then students should be appropriately placed based on their proficiency into the phase level. But we use the word
Mm.
phase to refer to proficiency directly. It's kind of just a metonymy as kind of a metaphorically normal thing that humans do. So phase one is a class in which students have no proficiency. And I think it fits what we were just saying about false beginners, that they're coming
Hmm.
in, they have studied a lot. They sure have. Um, I did have one class. My current 10th graders started with me last year running. They could read. They weren't really used to hearing the language at all, but if you gave them a text with sort of like A2, Sepher A2 level, ACTFL, I don't know, intermediate, low, no, I would say ACTFL novice high level kind of text.
Yeah.
They were motivated and happy to just like blast through the like read everything and talk about the
Hmm.
meaning. They did a lot of reading
Interesting.
tests with in the middle school with the teacher, so I had to kind of figure out what they could do and couldn't, not yet do.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and they did everything. They're still like a very strong class. Now the class
Hmm.
below them is a smaller class, but they're also strong. I assign something, they do it. When we participate in class, they're talking more. I feel like the years are getting stronger and stronger. I don't know if that's because of changes in the middle school teachers teaching. I'm not sure. Maybe because they know they're coming to me that they. I don't think
Hmm.
that's it though. I've asked before. They don't seem to be aware of what's going to happen in high school. They're pretty isolated.
Hmm.
So I think the teacher probably is doing more with them. She complains and says she can't get through anything. They're very distracted. This whole generation seems to be getting more and more distracted.
You hear
But
that a lot.
things that I do with them when they first come to me. So at the very beginning of the year, I try to set up expectations around like we're going to be hearing the language a lot. I have a little puzzle thing that's on the unit topic. So ninth graders come in talking about campus changes because we had a lot of construction on our campus. So the unit is about how we communicate changes on campus. And so we have a school map. I have a printout of it. I cut it up to become a puzzle. And so I'll have the puzzle on a desk. I'll put a desk in the middle. I'll have the puzzle pieces laid out, and I'll say to students, I kind of randomly distribute the pieces to them, and then they'll try to like non-verbally hand me the pieces they see I need next for the puzzle, and I'll say the whole point of this is for you to be hearing me describing what I see and what I need next. Now, an alternate version to put a student at the center of this is to have a student who's piecing it together, and then students on the outside, and then the teacher moderates and says, "Here's what you need. Here's what you need." This is a very input-based way of doing it. That's what I prefer at the beginning, is very input-based kinds of things.
Mm.
I don't expect them. I don't see that they're able to produce on the topic that we're talking about. So I wouldn't start with them. I wouldn't just stand back
Yeah.
and say like, "All right, you guys say what puzzle pieces you need."
Right.
But yeah, so I'll say, okay, in Chinese, I'll say like, okay, I see a roof, it's blue. I see it looks like the high school building. Does anybody have another piece of the high school building? And then someone will like
Hmm.
hold it up and it'll be like, is that the high school building? And I kind of look around like, is that the high school building? And they're like, "Mm, yeah. And so, okay. And then a lot of English comes up. And so I'll say like, hey guys, policy, this is about listening, hearing Chinese. So you don't need to speak at all to do this puzzle-based thing. It's very visual. The more you can just hear Chinese and respond to Chinese, the better. They also will quickly get off topic and talk about completely unrelated things from other classes. And so I have to shut that down too. And so a lot of this is just training
Yeah.
for them to be
Yeah.
like
It's the classroom
focused in
management kind of
class, classroom
training.
management training. Yeah. And
Yeah.
goal.
And
Yeah.
and I think it's building that, like, no, you can actually, we can use Chinese as a medium of instruction here instead
Hmm.
of like, you know, talking about Chinese in English, like if that
Yeah.
makes sense, because
Yeah.
it sounds like that's their natural, they want to go back to talk about what they're doing in English. And I've
Right.
that kind of
But
reset is it's
yeah.
yeah.
Well, they also
What
like they would get a lot of mahjong days, where like the last 10 to 15 minutes of class, probably once or twice a week, they get to just sit and play mahjong in the middle school.
yeah.
They're not doing it anymore because the middle school used to be 70-minute classes like we have in high school, and then now they have 45-minute classes, but they meet every
Oh,
day.
that's different.
We meet
Yeah.
every other day, in the high school, and they used to be like that too. So uh, when they came to me, they still asked like, "Oh, can we just have a mahjong day today? Like, can we just do mahjong?" And they were asking for a while. Like, mahjong was really great. We were learning to play, and so I finally just told them, "You guys were speaking English the whole time, and that's not a good use of our class
Yeah.
time." And I let them do it once, and I provided little mahjong vocab stuff, and then
Yeah.
they just started, as you should, chatting about fun topics unrelated
Hmm.
to
That's
school
how Mahjong
or our class.
works.
That's how mahjong
Yes.
is. And
Yeah.
so
It's a
when they
social
started
game.
asking more, like, "Oh, can we play mahjong again?" I was like, I've never seen it productive for our goals in language learning. Like, you guys
Hmm.
always speak English the whole time. And what I say is, when I think of a better way to guide you guys to use Chinese, we'll do mahjong again. And we haven't
Hmm.
played mahjong since. I've also noticed that explaining that to them, they seem to be using less English in class, and they're easier to
Hmm.
redirect back into the target language. So
Yeah.
for me, a lot of
Like,
it's
here's your goal. Here's
the
why.
goal, yeah.
Yeah.
It's more of a process goal than an outcome goal. It's like
Yeah.
our participation goal in class is avoiding English and just being present and sticking with the task and activity we're doing, the topic that we're on
Right.
in the language.
Yeah.
And sitting quietly, if you can only think of stuff in English, just hang out and wait. Like, it's about exposure to the
Right.
language, using the language.
Right. Yeah. And this reminds me of like the thing that I've often heard people say as a concern in working with either a new group of students or total beginner students, like novice level zero background
Yeah,
students, is that well, I can't use the target language with them right away because they're going to freak out. They're going to push back. And I think that could be true. Absolutely.
sure.
But I like, could it be possible
Right.
that there is a way to carefully introduce that in such a way that they really do feel successful so that you can, use the target language a lot. I think sometimes the way in which we use the target language is it can be we might be babying them a little too much, say like, well, they're not ready for that on day one. Like I did use the syllabus and we talked about what was in the syllabus in my high school classes. And I did a little bit of like expectation setting, like here's the expectations in the wall, like here's how you participate. But I wanted to get a real at least 20 minutes of time where we were using the target language to do something to communicate. And it was either, themed around like, I'm going to get to know your names. And so we're going to do attendance by talking in Chinese. And you're going to join me in this conversation. And I see the looks on their faces like, oh no,
Yeah.
what's she going to make me try to say? And then I say, like, you can nod your head, you can give me a thumbs up,
Yeah.
thumbs down. Look
This
look at me funny if you're not sure what I'm asking. I'll use that. That's helpful to me, and
I've seen
like,
this called coaching, and I think it's a fantastic use of English with your English L1 students. That
yes, when
especially
you
at the
share that
beginning,
language. Yeah.
lots of explaining about what I'm going to be doing, what you should be doing, what you should be expecting, how we're going to
Yeah,
use the language.
right.
Lots of English in the very beginning. That's about what to expect about being in this class. And I think that
Right.
that's really, I've
It's
seen it to be really helpful. And when I didn't do it, when I didn't explain what we should be expecting, my first 2 years, no, my first, I would say my first semester actually at my current school, my seniors and juniors really struggled because they were so used to another teacher. So in my mind, I was thinking like, you guys get where we're going with this. Like in the private silence of my own mind,
mm,
I was like, they're seeing that we're using like this. They're gonna figure out that I'm asking a question about this picture. Um, they just started rejecting it. So they started doing things like
yeah.
just chatting with each other off topic, leaving the room, going to the bathroom, showing up super
Yeah.
late, skipping
Yeah.
class. They just had no idea what was going on. And
Right.
once I started to, it was a visit from the dean, because a student was saying, we don't know what's going on in this class at all. And it wasn't me using the language anymore. It was like a completely broken class with students barely
Mm,
there. Me really pulling my hair out, being like, I don't know what to do with this class, like at all. Like I don't know what we're supposed to be doing
yeah.
here. So a student went to the dean and we had a little sit down and she said, I don't know what's going on in this class. And I said, I don't either. Like they're not showing up. They're leaving. And the dean said, oh, I wish you'd told me this earlier. Like this is, I need to intervene.
Yeah.
And so when the dean came to visit, I told the students, hey, we're being visited. Our dean is here. Here's what to expect from this lesson. And that's when I explained what we would be
Ah,
doing because I wanted everyone to be clear about why the dean was there. But also,
right.
it made everything run smoothly. And the dean was like, hey, that was an okay lesson. And I was like, it was. What a beautiful surprise. And from then on, I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I need to do this like regardless, especially at the beginning.
Right.
Coach throughout. I
Yeah.
think it was Jason Fritz
Don't
was talking
assume that
about,
they
yeah,
know.
like
Yeah.
what they're supposed to be doing, what to expect from you, or even what the goals of the class are. Now, I found in a file
Yeah.
cabinet a lot of old quizzes with students' names that I was teaching, and it was very vocab. It was like vocab quizzes, and I thought, okay, this is a piece of what they were doing. I don't know what else they were doing, but clearly they were treating me in the moment as this like weird alien.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think
As,
even the
and
goals of language learning were different and not assumed to them.
right. And I think that's why I wanted to think about these other kinds of aspects of like working with people from the beginning because this kind of thing happens, you know? So, yeah, we don't know what the people walking into our classroom are expecting or thinking. And even if they happen to really jive well with what you're aiming for, telling them is going to give them a sense of like, oh, okay, I can wrap my mind around this. Of course, this is when we share a language with them. How do we do it when we don't? Then it's a slower process, I think.
Sure.
And to bring it back to my cat a little bit,
Hmm.
I mean, Holly trusts me already. Like I show that I'm reliably providing the things that she needs. I give
Yeah.
her the food she wants. I give her attention. I
Yeah.
let her go out. I bring her back in.
Hmm.
Like there are a lot of things that she can see that I'm reliable. And so
Yeah.
when I'm introducing this extra piece,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, what's this going to be? This should be interesting. And so like,
Yeah.
can we do the things at least
The,
that build that kind of foundational relationship with the students, or at least show that we're a reliable enough adult in the
yeah.
room to kind of,
Yeah. I'm,
I think that's helpful too.
I'm going to generalize and tell me if you think that this sounds reasonable. I don't know that you or I ever do this, but I think that here's a general principle. So with the cat has expectations about the environment that you go along with. And then the cat's like, yeah, this looks right to me. I want food. Food goes here. Food is here. Great. I'm wondering in the context of school, if you don't share a language and you have like adolescents that are likely to be like, "What's going on? I don't know. I'm checking out." That print resources can make things look like what they expect in the
Like a
environment.
school.
And so instead of just having an
Right.
image with nothing and trying to engage them in the image, and they're like, "Where is this going? Like, what do you want from us? What is this? What is this?" To have maybe a little survey in print and even on the first day, there could be English translations on it just so they know what's going on. Oh, sorry, no, sorry, not shared language.
You're not a shared language.
I
Yeah.
think back on that first class as like a little, what do you call it? Catalyst proving ground, like a sort of like a training. It's my mental
Yeah.
training ground to go back and be like,
Right.
what would my worst class ever How would they respond to this? They probably do that. Okay, how would they respond to this? Hey, I bet that'd be better.
Uh-huh.
And so I think back on them, and I think if I had things in print, they'd probably, and I actually did have some things in print, and they engaged better with it. But if you don't share a language at all, then I
Right.
suppose something in print that's picture based, simple picture based, almost more like street signs or things to kind of match, and then you engage them with it to train them in hearing you, to train them in the classroom practices that are
Hmm.
based around expectations, and then gradually you can move away from things that are so grounded in print. I would think that that's something that any kid after maybe second grade would start to
Yeah,
respond
if they
better
have
to.
school in their background, they're used to school doing certain things.
Yeah,
And so yeah, 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 the one of the strategies that does combine image with written text in minimal amounts is called PWIM, PWIM. I don't know if people say it PWIM or not, but
okay,
I learned this from an ESL teacher in Louisville, and I've seen it since then online in other settings for multilingual learners in the US. The idea is that you're able to do some content-based teaching using an image, and then you label them with words. And so even if that student isn't reading in English yet, like you're tying print into this thing, if they have a language background and they have some reading ability, they're going to be able to maybe to recognize these are some letters or this is a writing system. I don't know yet, but like it's not a high stakes introduction to the vocabulary seen in print. And it's supported by this discussion that they're doing essentially a picture talk with some labels,
yeah,
on the screen. So sometimes driven by the students, students can contribute, like if they know words, then you
mm,
can put those up there. If they are brand new to the language, you might be the one that's adding the words as you go.
yeah.
But um, yeah,
If
it's powerful,
I
I
love
think.
this. So I found for those, this is again my mental proving ground. What I do remember is those students did not have the patience for me to stop and write things.
Mhm.
As soon as I did that, they're like, "Great, now we can chat. Hey, what did you do this
Now it's
weekend? Like,
off.
what
Yeah.
happened this weekend?"
Right.
So I had to have everything ready to go before the
Ready.
class started,
Hmm.
including an agenda. But what I think you could do is quick prep is have an image, and then type up some words on the side in the target language, um, and
Exactly. I've
then
seen it that way too. Prepared so
drag
that
them
you,
over
hmm.
onto the
Yep.
picture and
Yep.
work
That
together with
works.
what words can we drag onto the picture.
Or in PowerPoint slideshows or Google Slides, you can do the animation feature where when you
Mm,
click, something appears. So you can have those words ready
okay,
to go and
okay,
just now that one shows, and however many you want to show at once, you
yeah.
could do that.
If you could
So
do
that
that,
that
you
too.
could as giving away the answer, but the negotiation, like in the target language, saying, "Is this like it says, let's say it's a picture of Chinese New Year t
Hmm.
dinner table with family members." So you could do a lot with that. So you could have some,
Yeah.
like you could have like grandpa, grandson,
Hmm.
or you could actually make it more meaningful if it's like dad versus grandpa, because now it's like, do you think he's the daddy? Do you think he's the grandpa? I like things that are actually meaningful in meaning as
Yeah.
opposed to obvious in meaning.
Right. How,
Like we don't
interpret a
need,
little bit.
yeah,
Yeah.
like granddaughter versus grandpa. It's so obvious. Why would we ask that question? But
Right.
if it's like uncle versus grandpa, I don't know. And so but then you could also have some food labels. Like you could really like make the picture the center of it by having a couple different domains of vocabulary. So don't make the whole thing about family. And then maybe a furniture like a table and a couch. You have six things: two family
Hmm.
members, two
Some of the
food items,
dishes.
and then two
Yeah.
furniture things. And then Chinese furniture gets interesting because sometimes like a couch, like an armchair for one person is also a shafa. It's a sofa,
Yes,
just like
exactly.
a big
Yeah.
long
If it
sofa.
was
So
soft.
furniture,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
it's soft, it's a shafa. So
Yep.
furniture gets interesting too, in terms of like concepts of categorization of what we count as what. But then you could spend you could really milk it as an input activity where you're
Yeah.
dragging that text onto the picture and saying, is this the grandpa or is this the grandpa? And you drag it between the two people. Is this
Hmm.
the grandpa or is this the
Exactly.
grandpa? Oh, this is the grandpa. Okay, all right. And then, okay, is this then the uncle? Is this the uncle? Is this the uncle? And I think it's okay. Well, okay, so if there's no shared language, if there's a shared language, I think it's okay to translate at the start. If there's not a shared language, You might start with just a pure one-way model
Hmm.
kind of thing where it's
Yeah.
like, I'm going to label this family dinner. Now let's do a new family dinner where we choose what they are, and we could refer back to the previous slide or the previous picture
Hmm.
as a reference for
Exactly.
meaning. Yeah,
Yeah.
do
If you
that.
had a personal picture of your own family, that might
Oh, it'd be
be
great.
useful too, because now they can root it in you.
Yeah.
And if you have children, if you have parents, like showing some of those people that might help kind of ground it and then go to the exploratory one,
Mm.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I take a lot of
Or a family,
pictures at home
yeah,
and
a
share.
family
Yeah.
that you think you can count on them to recognize somehow.
Mm. A celebrity family, maybe.
Yeah, maybe a celebrity family, maybe a cartoon family,
Oh, sure.
something like that.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
but those are iffy, those are culturally based. So, yeah.
Right.
But multiple angles on it. I think that's the other thing that I keep learning from the English as a second language world is like don't count on one path being the end all.
Yeah.
And they really deliberately cannot because of this lack of shared language with all students in the room.
Yeah.
Like you don't have that clarity and that precision. Um, Back to the cat again, the language gives us the precision,
Yeah.
but we can still bridge that gap when we need to when the learner does not share a
Yeah.
language with us.
Yeah, I've been paying close attention to my daughter's PK preschool pre kindergarten class. It's they're mostly 4 years old now, but they started at 3 years old, and the unit is posted on the wall when I walk in. The teacher shares. She writes a little note to parents every day that I take a picture of and send it to Non. But what the kids did, boy, they expect slow development and nothing. What they're targeting is usually not it doesn't represent the majority of what the kids are getting. It's like we're targeting syllables. Can you clap the syllables? Okay, but the teacher is
It's not the
reading
only thing they do.
storybooks, the teacher's having them do play acting, and
Yay. Good.
none of it is like so you got this one word out of it, right? Like, so you got this vocab out of it, right? No, all of that is completely incidental, but very rich. Like
Yeah,
and it's just normal preschool
that's great.
activities. But like, there's a sort of, if you break open the machine and look at it, there's a whole lot of interesting language things happening, but their focus isn't on that. Their focus is on the outside of the machine. Let's do this game. Let's read this book. Let's act this thing
Hmm.
out. Let's go have free play time. And all the while, there's so much language being used, but it's tasks that are designed for those kids at that age.
Hmm.
And so,
Yes,
yeah,
appropriate level
appropriate
task that
level.
matches their interest, their ability.
Yeah.
There you
And
go.
and to come back at grammar teachers, I don't see any sheltering of grammar at that age. What I see
Hmm.
is I see an intentional use of sophisticated words peppered in with
Yeah.
otherwise very comprehensible words that are accommodated to the kids. And so it's a fun
Yeah.
little moment that happens quite frequently where it's like, so he stashed the money into the backpack. It's
Mm.
like they'll pepper them in intentionally, but the base language is constantly just like 3-year-old appropriate language.
Yeah.
So I think that's
Sounds like a
something
great class.
it's something, yeah, and I think it's something when parents and teachers are reading to first language learning kids that they kind of that's kind of the front burner approach. It's like I need you to understand me, and so we're going to
Yeah.
use language you can understand, and then the teaching is going to be these little extra moments. If I can use a sophisticated word here, if I can teach you this way to analyze language, that's these little interval moments that do come up quite frequently. But I think that when we're teaching a language class and our default is like, they got to learn this grammar, so I'm going to target just this grammar. Oh, they're,
Right.
they're missing
It's
so much that they could otherwise be getting, which is just like
right.
constant exposure to rich language that is at their level. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Anything else? I think
That
there's
that
always
got the
more.
big things that I had on my mind.
With
So
beginners, do you go through personal connection, real world connection, and then play? Do you do all that with beginner?
ideally, yes, but maybe not all in that first class because I'm thinking like about half to two-thirds of class is kind of that expectations. Here's what we're doing. Here's how to begin. And now, okay, here's 20 minutes of this is the kind of way we're going to use language together.
Got it. Mm.
And I would love to do more of a debrief after that. I think now too, even with like high school students, I would do that, or middle school students. Like,
Sure.
okay, what helped you understand?
Yeah.
What helped you feel connected here as a
Yeah.
class? What
Yeah.
did we
Yeah.
do? What could we do next time? What could you do
Sure.
next time? What could I do
Sure.
next time?
Well, that helps
And
you
like make that
clarify.
normal. Like
Yeah.
I didn't do that when I was teaching K to 12, and I don't do it when I teach adults online, but I do when I'm using it as a professional development experience to like
Mm.
teach Mandarin and then debrief it. And I find that really helpful, and I learn
Yeah.
when I hear what people are experiencing too.
Yeah, it's
So,
also a chance to catch those expectations that you had tried
mhm.
to set up before, but somehow
Yeah.
didn't
Oh,
quite
that
meet
really
it. And so,
worked.
like,
Or yeah.
yeah,
Or that didn't
I
work.
told
So,
students like you're not
huh.
expected to understand much. And then at the end, I said, "How did that go?" And my ab initio student, the student who started Mandarin in 11th grade, total new language,
Yeah,
11th grade,
zero beginner. Yeah.
yeah. And so it's during her first year. And then she said, I think I understood like probably 50% of that. And I was like, 50%? That's amazing. It's really good.
Yeah.
I expected like 10%. She goes, oh, no, no,
Yeah.
more than 10%. And I was like, that's incredible. That's really good. So it's a chance to like catch her in her disappointment and be like, no, 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 no.
I'm
Like,
like, oh, no,
that was
that's
really good,
great.
actually.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
please think of
Yeah,
this
she's
as
jumping
success.
into language with students who had 10 years of experience,
10,
right?
10 plus years of experience. Yeah. 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. I think this is a fine place to end.
Yeah,
All
sounds
right.
good.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. I have been Reed Riggs.
And I'm Diane Neubauer.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.